Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak on behalf of two amendments today. The first to encourage more housing to be built, excuse me, along large transit projects. Many of our older cities are ideally suited for mass transit, where intensive land use density predates the automobile and where parking is inconvenient or impossible. But in cities that are more newly developing, like San Diego, and as all cities grow geographically, it's sometimes a challenge to match the alignment of the growing transit systems to the origins and the destinations they're intended to serve. If our transit projects aren't near homes and jobs, they're less competitive with the automobile. That means fewer transit riders, and that's bad for the environment because we don't get people out of their cars, and it's bad for taxpayers because we don't get the best fare box recovery and return on our federal investment. And in the face of a climate crisis and a debt crisis, that's not acceptable. We can easily do more, however, by using the federal government's significant leverage to improve future performance. When I was a city council member 15 years ago, our region competed for New Start's funding for a light rail extension. We call it the Mid-Coast Trolley, between downtown San Diego and our largest business district, near the area near the University of California, San Diego, known as University City. The federal government asked us for good engineering plans and matching funds, which our voters approved, but they never asked us for any assurance about what we would build near the light rail stations, land uses that might boost ridership and fare box recovery. Today, the Mid-Coast is well under construction. It looks great. It's due to open next year, but most of the stations are surrounded by surface parking lots, and some aren't even zoned for housing. Now, if part of the competition for federal money back then had involved locals committing to accommodate transit-friendly land uses, even just zoning changes that required no additional tax money, our region might today be building a bunch of affordable and market rate units near our $2 billion light rail project that'll be ready for when it opened, with lower requirements for things like on-site parking, which can lower housing costs and increase transit ridership in itself. A large federal transit project can cost the federal government anywhere between $200 million and $1 billion. And to ensure that this taxpayer money is spent wisely, the federal government should ask localities to commit to planning development around our transit corridors as part of the competition for these hundreds of millions of federal taxpayer dollars. My bipartisan bill, the Build More Housing Near Transit Act, which I introduced with Representatives McMorris, Rogers, Heck, and Gallagher, would require every applicant to conduct a housing feasibility assessment as part of the economic development criteria. And based on that assessment, local jurisdictions would have to commit to changing land use policies in a project station area to accommodate more housing. I want to thank the committee staff for including some of the measures from my bill in HR 2. These incentives, along with new direct support for transit-oriented development, constitute unprecedented incentives to build housing near transit, making communities more sustainable and walkable and less dependent on fossil fuels. My amendment number 173, which is co-sponsored by Representatives McMorris, Rogers, and Heck, seeks to supplement what's in HR 2 by requiring applicants to obtain a memorandum of understanding with local agencies to leverage to make real lasting changes that would improve quality of life, reduce pollution, and maximize return on investment. Why wouldn't we act? The concept in my bill is supported by national housing and planning organizations, including the American Planning Association, LISC, the National Association of Home Builders, Prosperity Now, Up for Growth Action, and more. They understand that building housing near transit is an imperative for the success of that transit. So I hope you'll consider that amendment and it'll to be heard on the House floor. I'm also introducing an amendment with my friend Adam Smith that helps agencies deal with the fallout from the coronavirus's staggering impact on public transportation ridership. Capital investment grants, particularly core capacity grants, factor in current ridership members as part of the application. For core capacity, an applicant can't proceed in the program if it can't show 95% ridership. And obviously that's going to be an impossible threshold to reach using data collected during the current pandemic. My amendment number 197 allows the project sponsor to ask to use data collected from before the pandemic to demonstrate ridership levels. It's a common sense measure that'll prevent transit agencies from being further handicapped by the pandemic, will allow construction projects to move forward more quickly without unnecessary delays. I hope you can support that amendment. My thanks to the American Public Transportation Association, or APTA, in helping me craft the amendment, and I'm thankful to the Transportation Infrastructure Committee for their support and good work. And thank you for your time.